In just a second, I'm going to be introducing author Robert Dugoni. This is our second interview, and I am so excited because he's written a brand new book. It's called The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell. Oh my gosh, guys, this book. Okay, you know him from Tracy Crosswhite, and he does have another one coming out soon. But this book, I read at least 5 books a week, and it is April, and this is my favorite book of the year. Okay, hands down. And I'm going to tell him, and I'm going to try not to tell him how much I love this book 25 times. I'm going to try to weave it in so it doesn't get annoying. But everyone, here's Robert.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited because I get to speak with author Robert Dugoni again. This is our second telephone call, and he's a New York Times bestseller, and you probably know him from his Tracy Crosswhite series. But the book we're going to talk about today is his newest book. It just came out this week, and it's called The Extraordinary Life of Sam Hell. Thank you, Robert, for talking with me about this. I had asked you last week, and I'm like, please talk to me because I want to talk about this book.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Oh, well, you know what? I was on Amazon one day, and I always go on their charts because I'm always, looking to see what's going on Amazon charts. And this came up as the #1 book to read in April.
Oh,
and
yeah, it was the book of the month. Yeah.
Book of the month, yeah. And I was like, wait. It wasn't a Tracy, I looked into it, and that's when I asked you. I was like, oh, my gosh, I so want to talk about this. And I read it. I've been traveling around, and I've read it. And this is, okay, I read 5 to 7 books a week. This is my favorite book this year. Just
wow,
so you know.
Thank you. That's high praise. I appreciate it.
It's incredible because I could feel that this was very personal to you. As I'm reading it, I just had this sense, and then when I read the end of the book and I saw that it was very personal for you, and I was like, I knew it. I knew that this was, it was so deep that I just knew that it was coming from a really, from a place within you, coming out.
Yeah, I launched the book at an event last night out here in Seattle, and what I tell people is it took me 5 weeks to write the first draft, and it took me 10 years to finish the book. And I think it was a product of a lot of things because the book was so close to me. I wanted to make sure I got it right, but I also didn't want to write a book, that was about me, and I didn't want to write a book that was necessarily about my family, but I did want to touch upon, certain themes and topics that, took place in my life and took place in my family's life and when I was writing the book. So really it just, it was one of those lifelong projects where you take it out, you put it back in the drawer, you take it out, you put it back in the drawer. And then when I finally reached a kind of this pivotal moment when I realized 2 things. One, who my main character was going to be, and secondly, what that main character wanted, then I was really able to pull the book together and finish it. But it's been a long, ongoing project.
Well, having read the Tracy Crosswhite series, I didn't know what to expect. And it's
most people
different. It's not anywhere it's nothing like that. And that's why I feel like this is such a book of the year for you because it is it's so different and so moving. I cried at the end, and I don't want to give spoilers, but I mean, it touched me, and I had a lot of books to read. I mean, I have a stack. While I was traveling, I had a stack of books that I needed to get done. And when I got done with this one, I had to take a moment. I'm like, okay, don't open up, just take it with me for a little bit. I didn't want to open up another book right away. I just wanted to let this one sink in. And and I don't really, I'm going to let you talk about as much of it as you want to give everybody a little brief about it because I don't want to give anything away. So I'll let you describe for everybody.
Sure. So the book is it's sort of reminiscent of A Prayer for Owen Meany and also probably the book Wonder that's out now that they made the movie, which I obviously never intended because that movie came out much later than when I started this book. But it's about a young boy who grows up in the town of Burlingame, California, and he's born with ocular albinism, which means he has red eyes, which is a real condition. And the idea for the story came both from my own life. My youngest brother was born with Down syndrome, which really rocked our world, and in particular rocked my mother's world, who was a real go-getter, a person I like to say didn't just rock boats, she capsized them. And so, when I kind of wanted, that was sort of the theme I wanted to write about, but I didn't have a character. And then I was reading the newspaper one day and I read about this young boy that was denied admittance to a Catholic school in Australia because the nuns there thought he'd be disruptive to their classrooms because he was born with ocular albinism, and the other students called him the devil boy. And once I saw that, I knew I had my character and I knew the story I wanted to write. So it's a story of his life. It's a story of him as an adult looking back on his life, what his mother said would always be an extraordinary life. And like so many of us, we don't understand really our lives until we get older and we've experienced things and we've gone through trials and tribulations and are still standing. And we look back on our life and we realize really what is and is not extraordinary. And that's really what happens with him. He's bullied in grammar school. There's a lot of adult themes. He's bullied really in grammar school. He's bullied in high school, and he gets by on the grace of both his parents, who are strong supporters, and then two other misfits. One is the only black child in his grammar school, who he goes on to high school with and becomes very good friends with, and then the other is Mickey Kennedy, who is a Midwest tornado who comes into his life in the 6th grade, and they become lifelong friends. And the story is really, it's really what I had to come to grips with was what the story was really about, and I finally realized that one day. It just sort of hit me like a lightning bolt that what Sam Hell, who's the character's name, what he wanted to believe. He wanted to believe all the things that his mother kept telling him, that he was going to have an extraordinary life, that God gave him extraordinary eyes because he was going to lead an extraordinary life. And it's really what we all want to believe, right? We all want to believe that there's a purpose for all the things we go through, that our struggles are not just bad times, but really are precursors for better times ahead. So, the book has really touched a lot of people, people that have disabilities, people that have raised children with disabilities, or simply people that have just had, difficult times in their life that they had to get through and don't really understand why they're going through it. I've been getting, all kinds of mail from all over the country from people who, the book really has touched. And that, I think, is a universal truth. I think all of us, we all have those struggles. We all have some form of trial and tribulation. And, we all have to take a step back and ask ourselves, really, the question that he asks is that, is this predestination? I mean, or is it something that we really can't change? Or are our lives more like billiard balls when it's scattered and just rack around the table, hitting into one another and careening off of one another into something else? And that's a difficult question for all of us to try to come to grips with. And it was, particularly difficult for a young man like Sam Hill, who was born with this very obvious, disability. He can't hide it. And I think that's the final thing I'll say is, the book is a lot like, is like Wonder, or even Harry Potter. Harry Potter had the scar on his forehead, and he couldn't hide it. Love him or hate him, it was there, and he was going to have to live with it. And that's the same thing with Sam Hill. The story takes place in the 1960s, before contact lenses and before colored contact lenses, for sure. And so he has to live with it. He has to learn how to live with his disability.
Yeah, and I was, because your timeline goes back and forth between the 60s and the late 80s, and that's what I kept thinking about when you were at the end of the book, when you talked about your brother who was born with Down syndrome, and I was like, nowadays that's not a thing. It's so not, it's so acceptable, and there's so many good things about it that, the progress that they've made. But then when you think about it, like in the 60s, where it was just, people didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to handle it. It was such a different time you know.
Right, and doctors didn't know. I mean, the doctors told my mother that, my brother should be institutionalized. He should be put in an institution because if we
Mm.
brought him home, he would disrupt the family. And that's really what clicked with me when I read that article about this young boy.
Right.
That he would, you think the opposite would be true, right? But that they'd learn some type of compassion. But the doctors literally looked at my mother and told her, said, you need to institutionalize him. You have other children at home, and you bring him home, and he's going to be a distraction, and he's going to be, difficult. And they didn't know what they were talking about. And of course, my mother being my mother, she was bound and determined that my brother was going to come home. And not only that, she was bound and determined that my brother was going to be educated, that he was going to be trained, that he was going to have a job, that he was going to have a place to live. And so she became sort of an advocate for people with disabilities way back when. And it really, my brother he's handicapped. He definitely is handicapped, but he did graduate from high school. He does have a job that he goes to every day, and he lives in a group home down close to my parents and my brothers and sisters. And it's his life, and that's the life that he leads. But you're right. Back then, people didn't understand it, and they didn't understand. I mean, they didn't understand ocular albinism back then either. They had no idea whether it was going to be, whether the person was going to go blind. They really didn't know. And so that's a lot of the story is people just they fear what they don't understand, and they didn't understand this young boy.
Right. I love the mom so much, and I chuckled at times, throughout the book and in her different things that she'd say. I mean, it's heartwarming, and I was like, I want her kind of faith. Like, she was like, the theme throughout is like, it's God's will, Samuel. Like, that was like her answer to everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, why can't I just have that answer? I need, I want to have that answer because, that it's simple. And at the very beginning of the book, this isn't a giveaway. I mean, she gives birth to Samuel, and then 2 days later, she shows up back at Mass. And you said, it was like Samuel says about his mom, a little birthing of a child isn't going to keep her from going to Mass. And then you really understand, that's how determined she is. And her throughout the whole book. I mean, I just loved her so much.
Yeah, she's a real force of nature. And she's one of those people that we don't get a chance to see them unless someone writes about them or you see them in the movies. Like Wonder, who's the mother's played by Julia Roberts, and those individuals are just really empathetic and sympathetic because they're struggling to give their child the best life that they can possibly give their child, and nothing's going to get in the way of their doing that. My mother was very much like the woman in the book. She was obviously not the woman in the book, but that same strength of character was something that I really wanted to push because Sam needed it. He needed his mother. He needed that relationship. In addition to needing sort of his father's more sage wisdom, he needed that person that was going to push buttons and to try to give him the best life that he could possibly have.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I just wish I could, I tear up talking about this book because, like I said, the ending is so amazing. And it had so many great themes throughout, so many relationships, so many, with his friend Ernie and with Nikki. And, there's so many things that it covers. And, when I got done, I was just like, oh my goodness, it was so good. There's so much packed in there, and I promised you I wouldn't tell you 100 times, so I'm going to really try to back off. But, I'm so happy to see how well this is doing for you. It's everybody's loving it, and I've been seeing it all over Instagram now. It's release week, like I said, and everybody is just loving it. So I'm sure you're just thrilled with that.
I am. It's been received very well. When you write a book like this, you always sort of in the back of your mind you have that concern: are people going to think it's a religious book? Are people going to? And it's really not. It's not about religion. It's not about religion at all. It's about faith, and the two are not the same. Religion is something that was created by men and women who are fallible. faith is not something that's created. Faith is a gift. It's something you either have or you don't have. And it doesn't have to even be related to religion. So, that's the thing that really, I try to emphasize is having faith in whatever it is that a person believes, is much more difficult because it's so esoteric. I mean, we don't know. Is there a God? Is there not a God? I mean, we don't know. It's not tangible. It's not something you can touch. And that's a far, far different thing than organized religion.
Yeah, and I felt like with her, too, I mean, I am not Catholic. I do have two sons that went to Catholic high school, though, and so I do know a lot about it. But what I loved about her was that it wasn't about her Catholicism. It was about her faith. And, she just so strongly believed, like I said, it's God's will. It's like, it's so simple, but it's hard, it's so simple, but as he finds out, like holding on to that sometimes isn't that simple.
Right.
And but I was like,
sometimes there's nothing more you can do. We all are going to face those moments in life that we cannot change. We cannot change if our child is born with a disability. We cannot change that. Whatever it is, we can't. It's out of our control. And I think having that faith that things will be okay is so important in life, because it's something that you can hold on to in those dark moments of your life, where you can say, okay, this is a bad time. I can't change it. I can't do anything about it. I'm going to have to learn how to live with it. But I have faith that it's going to be okay. That it's going to be okay. And it's sad when you read in the newspaper or whatever. You read about people who have reached points in their lives where they just can no longer hold on, and they can't accept whatever life has thrown at them. And there's so many people out there that have had such difficult things thrown their way, and it's sad sometimes when you read about people that they just can't see a reason for it. They can't see their way to the end of the tunnel. And Madeline Hill, his mother, was a person that was just, she was bound and determined she was going to hold on to that faith. She was going to see that light at the end of the tunnel for herself and for her son.
Right. Well, anyway, we'll talk about you have another book coming up. I just saw that this morning when I was doing.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, it's coming out, and it's another Tracy Crosswhite, right?
Correct. Right.
Yeah.
That's coming out in June. It's called A Steep Price. And I was, working on kind of multiple books for a while and at a time. And so it was, they wanted to give The Extraordinary Life of Sam Held the push they really felt it deserved. And so they moved it up, and it came out, came out last week or April. So, but yeah, now I got another Tracy Crosswhite book coming out in June that people are very excited about. And the advanced reviews again have been, really wonderful. So I'm excited about it as well.
Yeah, and I just saw an article. I don't know. I get all these like Google alerts for books, in case anybody knows what that is. But I mean, that's it like pops up in my thing every day. And
right.
this series, the Tracy Crosswhite series, was voted the #1 binge-worthy series.
Wow, I haven't even seen that.
And I just, like I said, it was, and that's just kind of like what happens in life, like I'm going to talk to you today and that pops up, and that's how I found out that this book was coming out. But what they were trying to say is like binge read them till, the new one. And so I thought I'd give you that news that's what happened.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really great. I did not know that. I did not know that.
It's like I get all these different websites for, book news and, but you know what? It's out there. That's all you have to know is that somebody posted that and it's there. So.
No, that's great. Thanks for sharing that with me.
Yeah. So I can't wait to read it. I would definitely, want to read it and talk to you about it. That's coming up soon, not 2 months basically from today. So anyway, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
but I do want to tell everybody the beginning of this book, just because I love this quote so much, and like I didn't realize at the beginning that it was going to be his dad who says this, but it says there comes a day in every man's life when he stops looking forward and starts looking back. And I was like, am I there? Am I at that point
Yeah,
yet? You know?
yeah. It's one of those poignant moments in our lives, I think. Really one of the neat things about this book is there are various parts of it that people have been emailing me and quoting back to me. And,
Mm-hmm.
the strange thing for a writer is they're clearly my words, but I don't remember writing them. I remember that phrase because I remember it's very poignant for me because, I'm at a point now in my life where I have adult children. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember that moment when I realized it's not about me anymore. It's about them. It's about their lives, that they have their whole lives ahead of them, and they have the chance to have, extraordinary lives. And so, I was at a place in my life where I'm very happy with what I'm doing. I feel very blessed to be able to do what I'm doing. I achieved the things that I wanted to achieve. I'm writing novels for a living, which is really all I ever wanted for a profession. And so I don't really ask for anything for myself anymore. I really don't. But I want to see my kids do well.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's sort of one of those moments that it's when the realization dawns on you, it's both a happy moment, but it's also a little sad.
Yeah.
And I've had a bunch of people emailing me regarding that, saying, I remember when that moment struck me.
Yeah, when I read it, it just kind of hit me because I was like, I have adult children also, and I have grandchildren. And my son, when I was reading this book, my second oldest son, his wife suffered a miscarriage and he got pneumonia, and then he got the flu, or he had the flu and then pneumonia or whatever. And he has three young girls, and I was trying to help them. And I was thinking one night when I was like thinking about everything that they had to face in this 1 week, and I was like, wow, going back to his childhood, like there were things I could fix, and I can't fix this anymore. I can't make it easier. I can make it easier by helping to babysit and that kind of stuff. But, to also just look at him and say, and reading this book also at that time, it was just like, it's okay. Like all this is okay. And it's a season, and it's, you'll wake up one day and you'll realize like, how it all fit together. But as they grow older, it's, and that's when I read this, I was like, oh my gosh, I read that. I'm like, I think I'm there. I think I'm getting there. Or, when you look at your kids and say, I can only help them so much anymore,
Yeah, no, we're all going to get there. My mom, God love her, she's 85 years old, and she was the toughest cookie I'd ever met in my life. And now, the shoe's on the other foot. It's up to us to take care of her. And that's the cycle of life. And it's a difficult one, I think, for people who are type A personalities like myself.
Yeah.
It's difficult for us to sort of accept that. But when you reach that point where you can't accept that, I think that's the point in my life where I really found peace. When I realized, you know what, I have a good life. I have a very good life, and I want my children to have the same quality of life that I've been blessed with having. And I'm just so grateful to all the readers out there that have made writing my novels worthwhile, and have given me a career that I feel has purpose to it. So much so, like I said, that I can look back now and I don't have to worry about my life anymore. Now it's about my kids.
Well, I think the fact that your mom raised 10 children is a testament to how talented she is.
Yeah, no, five boys, 6 boys too. So that you can imagine, right?
I can't imagine. And, you just don't hear about that anymore. Back when there was a time when it was, not that unusual, kind of unusual, but not that unusual. But in this day and age, that is not something that, you do not hear of anymore. And, that's probably why she's lived such a long life, because she's had such purpose to it.
Well, and, like you said, it's, you don't see that anymore. And, for me, nowadays, if somebody has 4 children, that's a lot of children. And I chuckle sometimes because I had such a marvelous life. I had such a marvelous childhood. I was constantly surrounded by people and doing things. But you don't. You're right. It's rare now when if I talk to someone and they say, "Oh, I'm one of 10 also," or I'm one of 12 or 9. It's not a common thing.
No, no, and I think you were very blessed. I think that would have been a lot of fun. I only had one brother, so I think being surrounded by that many people would have been very fun.
We had a ball. We really did.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I am just so happy for you. I mean, your heart just comes through in this book. I love your Tracy Crosswhite series, but I just knew, a couple chapters in and I was like, okay, this is special. This is a really special book for you. And I'm really, really pleased that I got to read it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the comments, and I appreciate you having me on your show. I hope other people are as touched by the book as you've expressed.
Oh,
It would
I
mean
know
the world
they
to
will
me.
be. Yeah, I know they will be. So anyway, I look forward to your next Tracy Crosswhite book. Can't
Thank
wait
you.
to read it. And of course, everybody loves that, and I love thrillers and mysteries and stuff like that. So that's all good. But I wish you the best week of your book release, and we will be getting it out there. And all the links for Robert will be listed underneath this video, so you can find it at Amazon. You can go right there and buy it. And we'll talk to you real soon. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this interview with Robert Dugoni. I am so happy for him. This book is so good, okay? I cannot express it enough. I told you I would only say it a couple of times, but I think I said it more than I should have, but it gets annoying. But anyway, go read this book. How about that? Just go read it. I have the link underneath here. Hit it. Go right to Amazon and you will not regret it. It is an amazing book, and I just want to thank Robert for talking with me. It's always fun talking to him, and until tomorrow, everyone.